meeting to order. We'll recognize groups and individual visitors. We'll just start by introducing ourselves. Was it Vicki? Yeah.
Yeah. Did you get my email?
Yes, and I emailed you back, and I didn't get any email you may have sent back to me, so I know that you're here to read a letter. So we'll just introduce ourselves, we'll let you do that, and then we'll move on with the rest of our agenda. Okay. So I'm Margaret Atkinson, I'm the board chair.
Mark Truhan, vice chair.
David Scholes, member.
Peter Yost, member.
Andy Pachuli, principal at Academy.
Jen O'Neill, assistant principal at Academy.
Jen Hemmingson, principal at Oak Grove. Jane Swanson, board recorder.
John Reed, principal at Green Street.
Lyle Holiday, curriculum coordinator.
Ron Stanley, superintendent of schools.
So you introduce yourselves, and you were going to read a letter, and so feel free.
Okay. It's a little awkward to be reading this letter at this meeting, but it's totally not related to what's coming later. So I think it's appropriate. It's something that I've been thinking about for a couple of years and have wanted to express, and this seemed like the time to do it.
And you are who, ma'am?
Vicki Roach.
Thank you.
I have my glasses.
Never mind.
Wait, where's my glasses? Sorry.
Everybody has glasses, so
Yeah, right. Okay. To the Brattleboro Town School Board. I write today to express my dismay at what I've witnessed in the Brattleboro Town schools lately, particularly in the last 3 years. Our town, and the district as a whole, has chosen a path that I believe is stifling the desires of both teachers and students to analyze, reflect, create, and explore. Adopting commercial programs at no small expense in an attempt to make learning systematic not only narrows the curriculum for students, but also discourages thinking amongst teachers. The overemphasis on data points from the recently adopted ongoing assessment system has trumped existing classroom assessment systems that actually give deeper and more comprehensive information about individual students. These approaches may be easier to talk about. Numbers and graphs are seductive and give the impression of objectivity. And reading a lesson out of a teaching manual is certainly teacher-proof. But do they reflect and encourage the type of thinking and analysis that we want to foster in our students as well as our teachers? To teachers who thrive on inquiry and analysis of their teaching practices, purchased, scripted programs are demeaning and uninspiring to deliver. Large blocks of time are spent in whole group instruction, which experience tells us is not optimal for most students, particularly those at both ends of the learning spectrum. While I understand the pressures of Nickleby and its inflexibility towards student achievement, I know that there are avenues that would fulfill its requirements and better address the needs of our students while maintaining respect for teachers and the profession of teaching. In an attempt to grasp for coherence and consistency, we are not only giving up precious time for work with small groups and individual students, but have also devalued the concept of teachers as knowledgeable resources with valuable expertise. The balance is off between responding to test scores and what they reflect and maintaining a rich experiential curriculum. As one Brattleboro parent expressed in a recent letter to the Reformer, quote, "An excellent elementary education should be a balance of learning basic skills and developing a love of learning. When the latter begins to be sacrificed in the name of the former, we are all losing out." In addition to the change in curricular emphasis, I have observed another cultural shift lately. More decisions are being made from the top down, without input from a variety of constituents. Communication and input needs to go up as well as down. This is an area where we should absolutely strive for consistency. We need open channels where diverse opinions are not just given lip service, but are genuinely fostered and regularly sought out. A climate of safety and respect for the full spectrum of perspectives is essential. The nature of the school board can make it difficult to hear the small voices, And the current climate of anxiety about job security makes it uncomfortable for those small voices to speak up. So, I would challenge you, the school board, to consider 2 critical tasks: to create channels of communication that are regularly and meaningfully open, where all perspectives have an opportunity to be heard in a climate of safety, and to create the expectation with central office, principals, and the board that this is how our whole school system works. The other is to consider what values you want to be reflected in our community schools. What you value, articulated or not, is what you're going to get. Are test scores the essence of education at this point? It seems particularly important at this time to create and articulate some other values that can be used to drive decision-making about budgets, curriculum, how teacher time is used, and the decision-making process itself. This is not about micromanaging, but having a consistent and clear lens through which decisions can be weighed and evaluated. For instance, we know that the business world now needs our students to be able to flexibly move from job to job, work as a team, and think creatively. These attributes are difficult to nurture under the best of circumstances. Teachers need the commitment of the board and the administration to acknowledge, support, and encourage their efforts to motivate students and foster an atmosphere where thinking and forming opinions can thrive. Certainly, it's not just our town or district that's faced with the difficulty of addressing mandates, budget cuts, and shifting expectations. Extra attention must be paid, though, in these times. We need to be clear about what we value in our students' education and how we can openly hear all points of view in an atmosphere of trust. If any of these sentiments resonate with you, please consider what steps you, the board, can take toward implementing change. Thank you.
Thanks. Please leave a copy of that with us.
I have a few copies. I meant to hand them out before, but I'm sorry. I forgot.
And I would also like the folks who are here to be able to sign in. You have the advantage of us in that there's no way you will get an adequate response to all those thoughts
Sure.
at this moment.
Sure.
But we certainly appreciate you coming and
I just wondered if
having
anyone
that part
had
of the
any
discussion.
questions or comments at this time. I mean, I don't want to get into a whole deep thing or...
Yeah, and being mindful
Indeed.
of our time. Sorry, I'm just like really pulling the chain. I don't necessarily really want to open the floor to a wide-ranging discussion, though
No.
certainly we will consider what you have to say, and I think there are many things in what you say that I think there's yes, your sentiments do certainly resonate with us as parents and the board members, and we want an excellent school system too. That's why we're here, and so and have put in the many hours and years that we have. So
I will leave copies, and my email address is on the letter, so if anybody wants to further communicate.
yeah, and do folks just want to introduce themselves? Since I'm sorry I didn't quite.
This is my posse.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry I didn't give you time to do that.
You want us to introduce
Yeah,
ourselves?
just-
Okay, I'm John Bentley, retired from Brattleboro town, teach 1 day a week up at Marlboro. Is that?
I'm Ann Fines.
Yeah.
I've taught for 37 years in this district and served for 13 years on the Putney School Board. And I would like a chance to say something. Hi, Ron.
I'm Jane Finlay. I was, for a while, served on the high school board in Brattleboro, and I'm no longer teaching, but at one time did.
I'm Beth Kendall, and I'm the aberrant. I'm the nurse.
Hi.
I'm at the retreat. We have similar.
Yeah.
I'm Vicki Lynn. I'm the secretary of the Academy School.
I'm Gail Greenleaf. I'm a former teacher from WSCSU. I worked there for 10 years. Most recently, I'm working at Marlboro Elementary School. And I'm here in support of Vicki's words. I think they're very passionate and well-spoken and very real. And I would also like to just echo what she's saying to the board as well.
Yes, so make it.
And yeah, so I'll briefly.
Briefly?
Yeah.
Okay. Three things. I'd like to, first of all, I do tend to agree with everything Vicki said. And I'd like to say, first of all, that I'd like to underline the business about open communication. And frankly, at this point, the communication is top-down. And it really does take a toll on the quality of the education in the district. And I think it's really important that if it's going to be open, it's got to flow, you know, from central office through principals, through teachers, through parents. The more you can get that going as a board, the better the result's going to be. The second point is that I really want to address the issue of sense of safety in this district, because I see that changing. And partly it's the job market. It's scary out there right now. But it's more than that. There's some policies, personalities, tendencies that are going on here that actually are intimidating people for speaking up. It's hard to speak up now. It's always hard to speak up, but it's harder to speak up than it has been at times in the past. And so anything this board can do to try to really nurture an atmosphere of trust where people feel safe to have divergent opinions and to speak up and to feel that their voices are going to be honored. I think that would be a wonderful contribution. And the third thing is, what is the third thing? I did have a third point. Oh, the balance of data. Nobody is objecting to really rigorous standards for math, for literacy, for communication, but frankly, it feels as though the balance has gotten out of kilter in this district. And that at this point, there is a need for trying to foster both analytic, clear thinking on the part of teachers and administrators, and also creativity. Because if you're going to nurture that in kids, it's got to come from the adults in their environment. And I think that's becoming increasingly hard to do, because it's becoming part of a system here. So, for what it's worth, those are my views, and I really appreciate the time on this.
And you raised your hand.
Yes, well, I also don't want to debate this, but I think sometimes when things are said at a meeting such as this, and we're silent, that especially when we're on TV, that people may watch and think there's agreement. So therefore, I feel compelled to just say that the situation you described is totally foreign to me. I don't know what schools you're talking about, but it's not the school I spend 8 or 9, 10 hours a day in, or the system.
Could I reinforce that? You mentioned many good points, and they were very altruistic, but it was a little thin on specifics. Will you have a specific list of concerns? What diverse opinions, what subject matter, what data are you concerning? Could you supply that to us as well?
I think
The
if
nuts
you
and
and I
bolts of
want
it?
to have an email conversation, maybe we could do that.
Along with that, no.
Okay.
No, I don't understand an email conversation with an individual.
Oh, I don't know that.
Well,
works.
I mean, so here's the thing. This format is especially hard to meaningfully have a conversation about the incredibly important issues you've brought up, especially since we've had zero warning that this is what you're going to say. We are also, and I agree, so here's, the TV camera here, and so, I don't want to brush you off or not have the discussion, but it's obviously many large ongoing discussions. we talk about the climate of the school, our curriculum, our budget, the balance between math and language arts and the arts all the time here. We're looking at school action plans today at this meeting. You know, you are really welcome to stay and be part of that, but I just feel like that we're at quite of a disadvantage to even get to the meat of the things here in this format. So, but I still, we take what you say very seriously. So I'm trying to be mindful of, like, I'm trying to, hear you.
No, I think,
But also I think that there could be in this room a difference of opinion about the characterizations of our schools, and having this meeting become an hour of
That was not my intention.
It's not going to be useful for us. It's not necessarily going to be useful for the town, and so I'd like to find a way to move forward that works. Yeah.
Nancy? Yes, I served on the Brattleboro School Board, on the high school board, and I know that in meetings there are many, many things that always need to be discussed, and you have tons of stuff to do. But I think the point that's come out, and making it very clear, because Andy said something different and Mark said something different, is that there needs to be more discussion. But what happens often is that discussions don't happen because school boards and everybody else gets too busy for things. So I would like to have the school board schedule something or come up with some kind of a plan so that there'd be an opportunity for community people and school board members and people who agree and disagree to have the discussion. If we don't make the date for it and we don't set something for it, like I've experienced in many, many instances in schools I've worked in, it won't ever happen. So I implore the school board to come up with a plan that at the next meeting they will set dates or something to have some kind of a meeting to address what Vicky's brought up.
I think that's completely. Thank you, because that's where I was trying to go. Yeah. So we're at the beginning of our we're working on our work plan too, and so yes, that's a very useful thing to do, and I would say, sure.
So if I came to the next school board meeting, you would have
people
something.
are welcome to come to every single meeting we have. Yes. There is no reason why there shouldn't be 50 people.
Right,
but yes, you're always welcome, and yes.
But I hear a date or we hear some kind of statement.
I have a suggestion on that.
Yeah, so sure, Mr.
At our goal-setting meeting in the summer, we talked about engaging the public in conversations specifically with the question of goals or values in mind. What does this committee want from the schools? And the intention is to have a series of public meetings to engage the public in that conversation. And I'm hoping that we would plan the scheduling meeting for that, or that we would schedule a planning meeting for that tonight. But we have to talk about how we set our agendas.
So.
But I just know how things get lost. I've been in enough meetings and things can happen, but it sounds like this one's not going to get lost.
Right.
Good, thank you.
I'd just like to say, Vicki, that was an incredibly articulate letter. So thank you you clearly spent time on that, thinking it through.
I've been thinking about it for a long time.
Margaret, I'd also like to say I'm very excited about getting to our agenda setting type thing, because I feel very badly that I stayed at my son's soccer thing and watched the first 5 minutes off of this one, because I would have loved to have heard the whole thing. And it's one of those things that we've struggled with as a board of how to bring in public comment where and how in our agenda and how the agenda is set. So it is on our agenda for today to start to try to have that, so that it would not be such a surprise, and that there may be other people that wish to speak on both sides of this issue, so that it would be more, and it definitely is on our goals that we had already discussed.
Just say one thing. I just want to make, when I listen to these things, I think part of this is an education about what we're doing in our schools, because maybe there's some misunderstandings about the values of what we believe as administrators and what's happening in the classrooms too. So it's not that I would say people agree or disagree, because I think there are things that we totally are in line with, and then there's things that we aren't about how that is translated. So.
And the important thing is to articulate it so we all understand, well, this is what we're addressing in this, and this is what we're addressing in this.
And our visions, yes.
To make it clear.
Yeah. And I'd like some time to be able to respond as well.
in the future.
Yes. In the future, yeah.
Excellent.
It's kind of ironic that I don't know we're going to have the time tonight, but one of the things that we will be doing next is looking at the goal setting that we did on August 21st, and then the work plan with meeting schedule that would identify some of the issues that you've talked about. And then the board had done their homework on the SU action plan. I know you read it carefully. And I was going to highlight that tonight. And I welcome you to stay around for that. I'm not sure how far we're going to get into it, but it really addresses a lot of the information that we're doing, that we believe in, our goals and action steps related to that. And oftentimes, I think what happens is administrators work on this, the school board reviews it, we try to get it into the school, and oftentimes people are really not that versed with this information. So I would hope that at least you get a copy of this prior to the time
Is that
you
for the
come
whole
back.
district, Ron?
Yes. And it's specific to all the schools.
Okay. So, whip cracking aside now, I'm going to move on. Thank you so much, though. It's very important that you showed up. So, I'll accept a motion on the consent agenda, please. Hoping that folks went and reviewed the warrants.
So moved.
Did they?
There's,
Were the warrants signed?
Well, there's one that's not finished.
Okay.
Yeah, there's signatures, there's 3 signatures now, except Dave and I have a couple of questions.
237, 707. It's on there.
I don't think you can technically
Pull that
do
out.
that.
All right, so,
I didn't hear a second.
no,
That's
there
okay.
hasn't been. They went right to discussion. So, which warrant, please?
The one that comes to 237, 717, 96.
Okay, warrant number 1026, so you're going to approve every one but that
Yes.
one? Amending that motion?
I'll amend it to exclude warrant number 1026.
I'll second.
Got that? Good. All those in favor?
Aye.
Great. Administrative reports, but before you go, so there was a document that circulated about administrative reports among the board. Did the principals see that? No.
That was one of my
Okay,
discussions.
so it was,
I
so
did
that's,
not see the
okay, so
email.
that's, it can go down under committee, because you guys were sort of an ad hoc committee, and so it's a step. So I just wanted to make sure that,
I sent it on to you, and I didn't know how widely it needed to be discussed, because it was supposed to be what we wanted to hear from the administrative report.
yeah.
So I didn't expect it would be used
okay.
today.
No, I didn't think so either, but it was part of this, so I just wanted to make sure that we knew you knew that I knew that it was in there, because it's not specifically on the administrative reports. Go.
Did we approve the August 21st minutes?
They're part of the consent agenda, yes. Did you have a question with those? Okay.
And did we have feedback or more minutes from Harry? He was going to send
Yeah,
us.
Yeah, that's coming.
So I haven't seen that. That
No, none of us
doesn't
got it.
constitute part of the minutes that we're approving. Right?
Okay, so,
Okay, I guess I'm starting Oak Grove.
Yeah.
So I know that Ron is going to speak about the WSCSU action plan. So I am presenting to you our Oak Grove action plan. It's not a document you can read in the next 2 minutes. It's a school improvement plan. We are in corrective action, as you probably know, in year 3, which has its restrictions. So there's parts of this that are in compliance with the corrective action through the state for not making anyone do no child left behind. But what I believe is unique to Oak Grove, in our school improvement plan, we've added quite a lengthy section, a third goal about safe and healthy schools, which looks at school climate, parent communication, promoting a healthy lifestyle, and providing access to the arts. We spent our first staff meeting of the year about a little over 2 hours, with a big part of our staff meeting using protocols to look at our action plan and about what was working for us, what was aligning with our goals and our vision as a school of what we believe Oak Grove to be, and how our action plan aligns with that. And then we spent our next well, I can give you a little more information. We spent a lot of time talking about what we believe in and who we are as a school, what we want children to know, and we talked a lot about the whole child, the whole climate, and then how our action plan reflects that or how it does not. Some things came out of it, like we want to create an arts committee. It came out that staff members will need to be more involved with different committees. We need to find different ways to schedule our time so we have more co-teaching time. Things like that. Amazing staff meeting, really high energy, very positive, very exciting way to start the year. And then our second staff meeting, which just happened, it's Wednesday, yesterday, we followed up, and I had taken all the data from our conversations and compiled that into highlights from the action plan, things we wanted to do as a school, steps we wanted to take, and the resources we would need to get there. And we started dissecting that as a staff again. And then I will meet with, I've been meeting with different classroom teams, 4 through 6, 2 to 3, and K to 1, to talk about what that looks like. So we're doing some facilitation this week. So really great meeting. Oak Grove is having a fantastic start of the year. We had an amazing first half day with parent workshops that I think it was our best one yet. A lot of positive feedback. A lot of parents in the building from the time the door opens until they stay till about 45 minutes past the half-day dismissal. I still had parents out back eating pizza and hanging out. And so it was really a great start, and Oak Grove's feeling good. So,
Can you give us numbers, Jen?
what kind of numbers would you like? 42.
How many kids and kindergarten class? Which ones?
For that showed up at the picnic or at that?
No, just in general.
Enrollment.
Enrollment.
Because it was fluctuating so much.
It was fluctuating so much, and we're getting a new one tomorrow. We lost one today. I would say we're at 132. We're probably right about where we were.
And the kindergarten class?
Back to 20 again. It was 19 this morning. We'll be 20 again tomorrow.
I'd also like to say that I came by during the in-service for many of the schools, and actually during the parent workshops, and I would really like to appreciate Catherine Mason and Jim Olson, staff members at Oak Grove, that had provided professional development and training for para-educators on harassment and bullying issues. So this is district-wide, SU-wide, that these two individuals are working with our staff on climate issues in terms of safe school and making sure that para-educators are versed in what they need to do when they confront bullying and harassment issues. So I really appreciate the fact that your two staff members are doing that. And I think there's like 2 other sessions that they'll be scheduled throughout the year.
Throughout the year, they'll meet with all the para-educators throughout the SU.
Great, thanks.
So, at your leisure, I welcome feedback, probably for next meeting.
Yep. Anyone have any immediate questions for Jen right now?
Is this already approved, Jen? I mean, are we?
It is.
Does our feedback mean anything to the?
Yes and yes. It is already approved by the staff. It has been uploaded to Green Mountain Star by our requirements along with assurance papers. But we have agreed as a staff that this is a living, breathing document because we're trying really hard to use it to guide our work and align with our goals. So I already know it's going to keep changing. That's good. So yes, feedback is absolutely welcome. So yes and yes.
So I'm going to pass out the Academy School Action Plan, and we won't discuss it. It's self-explanatory. So what I invite you to do is to look at it and make notes, comments, whatever, for the next board meeting. And we'll discuss it. Ron mentioned the SU Action Plan, and we're all aligned with that. So it's sort of like if you look at the SU Action Plan as the U.S. Constitution, and each state has its own constitution, which has to be consistent with that. But then there's an opportunity for us to focus on our own schools within that larger framework, which is still what our action plans do. And we have been elected to the Green Mountain or invited to participate in the Green Mountain Star Club this year, first for us. UHS and Academy have to join that group this year.
What's that group mean?
It's, well, because of our EYP status, which is corrective action, we have to write a school restructuring plan and do it using the Green Mountain Star principles. And there's, I think, 65
indicators.
Indicators. I'm the principal. They're the indicators. There's 65 indicators. We select 5 or 6 of those. Unlike schools last year, like Green said, I think 65. We get to select 5 or 6. But because we're a school that's considered to be closing the gap, there's they're differentiating schools that are in corrective action, schools where their student learning is flat, and schools where student learning is increasing. And the gap, the achievement gap between students' low socioeconomic background is closing, then we're considered in that category. And we're allowed to use our action plan, input our action plan into this. And if I'm being vague, it's not because I want to chase it, because I don't understand it. It's quite extensive, and I've only had one meeting for about an hour and a half, and there's a fair amount of training that I must go through to be knowledgeable.
So the bottom line, was it good or bad
To join the club?
Well,
you don't have any choice.
Is everybody in the club now? It's not an exclusive club in this
I think Demerson's the only.
They're in the club.
Oh, they're in the club.
They made AYP, but they're still in the club. You have to make it for 2 years in a row to get out of the club.
So I guess we're just late to the dance.
Yeah.
Just to clarify, these are the sanctions, basically, that are related to the No Child Left Behind.
Right.
You could say that.
And the Green Mountain Star is the state's response to that federal legislation, and this is your response to the state.
Right, and those indicators are national. It's a national program, and Green Mountain Star is Vermont's name of their version.
But the tests are different in every state, and ours happen to be more challenging than a lot of other states.
So looking at the indicators, they're all good. It's hard to argue any of the indicators. So we're trying to frame it as it's a good opportunity for us, a good learning experience to get better at what we're doing, and picking some specific areas to say, okay, we could do better. We could do better for our kids in those specific areas. And while it's a lot of work and we didn't have a choice, it's not a bad thing to be able to sit back and say, you know what, we need to do a better job for our students in these areas. And that should be an ongoing process we should do every year if No Child Left Behind disappeared.
Right, and I've talked about this in the past. This is Vermont's response to the requirements for No Child Left Behind, to really make it more flexible to Vermont, rather than the standards that they're using nationally, where you fire the principal, you fire half the staff, the school becomes a charter school, or they take over the school. Vermont was considering doing a waiver. They pulled the waiver back because they realized that they could use these IndiStar indicators that we now call Green Mountain Star as a way to align our action planning process to the school improvement efforts that we're doing anyway. So it's actually a good thing for Vermont that they've taken a tact that they have to follow the federal regulations, but they've modified the system to make it more tied into the school improvement efforts that we've been doing anyway. And so, as Andy said, the SU action plan is, I think of it as more of an umbrella, and then it supports all the individual school action plans, and hopefully we'll have a chance to talk a little bit about that.
And though it is somewhat time-consuming, every school that's been through it has found that it's helped them be quite self-reflective and honest, looking at the indicator, and let's decide, do we really do as this indicator intends that we should be doing, or are there improvements that we could be making to benefit children? So all schools that have gone through this process have had that time of self-reflection.
And it includes things, including communication with staff, with parents, students, through climate, So it's pretty holistic, in fact. So I'll keep moving. I know you're under a crunch of a time. So our enrollment is at 391. So we're well off students. We actually hit a high water mark of 401. We couldn't maintain it, however, and we did have some students who left. And we're at 393. However, we have a couple of students that have yet to show up for school. So we're assuming that they may show up somewhere else eventually. So we're just under 400. We're large. We had our first all-school sing yesterday, and we really had to shoehorn the kids in. 40 more students is like 2 whole classes in the gym. So we're pretty packed. We have 8 classes of 20 or more right now, I believe, which is a lot.
So we went up.
We're full.
Went up 40 in a year.
Yeah, approximately 40 in a year. So we're really feeling full.
What's your kindergarten numbers?
I'm sorry?
Kindergarten numbers.
Kindergarten is 19, 20, 20. The first grade is the highest grade. It's 22, 22, and 20. We were at 22 across the board there. We had 2 from first grade leave. So interesting enough, we represent right now 18 different countries. Well, 19 including the U.S. But China, India, Congo, Pakistan, Turkey, Jordan, Guatemala, Ethiopia, Taiwan, Costa Rica, Thailand, Rwanda, Chile, Jamaica, Azerbaijan, Germany, Canada, and the territory of Puerto Rico. So we have students born in those different countries. So we think we'll have hard data for you in an upcoming meeting, but our special ed numbers have increased. Students with special needs, that is, and the number of homeless families seems to be on the increase in Brattleboro.
Are your English language learners increased this year as well?
Yeah, there's an increase there at 25. We were down a little bit from that last year. And we've also tested a number of students out. When they go through the program, they reach a level of proficiency, and then they go on a year of monitoring where they just get limited support. And then if they continue to grow, the following year they don't receive ELL support at all. So we've had a number of kids who've been with us for a while that advanced through the stages of ELL need, and they've exited the program. So in fact, that's we're always bringing kids in, and we're always exiting kids if they stay with us. So it's quite a thing to see, especially when we have students who actually come in and can't, and sometimes they can't speak a word of English. And to actually see a student over a period of years come from not being able to speak English, actually exit the program, which means total fluency, is really astonishing to see. It would take us a lot longer, I'm convinced, completely, to learn a new language. And just want to remind the board that our back to school night is September 19th. I think it's 5:30. So we do a huge barbecue in front of the school, and then we bring parents in for the open house portion. So if you'd like to come by for a meal, come on by. It's on me.
What is it, September 19th?
September 19th, yes, Thursday night.
Burgers and dogs.
Burgers, dogs, and usually chicken. I think. Chicken. Jen's our chef, so.
Oh.
Well, kids like
How talented, dunking pond chef.
Yeah, for
No dunking.
No dunking ponds?
no dunking at back to school night. I'm too busy cooking.
the chicken gets soggy.
Yeah.
Jen turned blue the last time I saw
That was 2 years ago.
Yeah. Great, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Okay. Greens, you already have a copy of my plan that I'd passed out a few meetings ago. But it's noted in our plan, it looks a lot like the Oak Grove plan in the way that the indicators are noted, curriculum and instruction 101 and so on, with those different indicators that Andy was talking about. And as Lyle said, I just wanted to echo, we had actually 2 different groups work on our plan. One was our PLC committee that meets every week, and then we had a special Green Mountain Star work group that spent many hours. I forget, we had 4 work sessions maybe, It was a really good process, reading through a lot of research articles and aligning what we came up with 5 focus areas to really look at what we need to improve, and seeing the way that it aligned with the district action plan as well. And I know Ron will be talking about that later. So it's a good process. It's a long process, but it's a good one. And we'll be reviewing. Tomorrow is our first PLC committee of the year, committee meeting, and we'll be reviewing some of the goals in there and some of the other data that we'll be looking at. So it was a good process. Our enrollment numbers at present, they seem to go up and down a little every day, as Jen and Andy can tell you. We're at 246 right now. Kindergartens are 20 and 20. First grades are 20 and 20, so we have 4 classrooms of 20. Mo told me just before I left today, she's compiling our free and reduced lunch numbers. We don't have all of those yet, but she just found out today that 133 families are already direct certified from last year, and we know we're going to get some more. So that's direct certified is already about 46%, and so we're going to get more, and I'll have that information for you next time. I just don't have it all yet. Again, I've seen also, as Andy mentioned, an increase. A lot of the late registrations we're getting are homeless families. There seems to be a big need with the transient population. And so that presents some challenges. One really good thing that's happening is we're really pleased so far with Tracy Benet-Perrin, our new counselor. She's doing a good job getting around and meeting the new families and offering support. So we're really pleased about that. We had some really good playground work days, as I mentioned. The new swing set was delivered yesterday. It took 4 of us to get it 600 pounds off the flatbed truck. It was a real challenge, but we did it because there's no loading dock, there's no anything there. But we did it, and we'll be having some more excavation and assembly work going on soon to get that installed, and we're really excited about that. We had a number of stencils painted on the blacktop area. The kids are all real happy playing on those out every day, especially the primary kids. So it's a really good, happy scene out there at recess now, which is great. We still are in the process of interviewing for our last part-time para position. We had a late resignation. I have a couple people I'm interviewing tomorrow, but I feel like I'm really close, and that'll help with some of the duties we've been scrambling to cover in the meantime, but everything's working out. Our first day was very well attended. The school sing celebration we had, that's the most that we just about had to shoehorn them into our gym too. It was a big crowd, very positive vibe going on at our first day. So that was a big success. And there was just outside of the new kindergarten families, we have at least 30 new families throughout the building. So lots and lots of new blood in the building. So we're all scrambling to learn everybody's name and get everything in place for them. Our open house is also the 19th, 5:30 to 6:30. We don't have the barbecue though, so you're welcome to stop by.
You can make it a great.
But
yeah, you need to have dessert over there.
That's a good idea.
The whole town.
I just wanted to make a quick comment on recess at Green Street. I have a little brother, and I have been going there last year once a week and spent my time on the primary recess. And those kids get their money's worth. It's so much fun. They're so active. And I haven't visited the other recesses, but I would imagine it's about the same. So, like, stick with recess. It rocks. It's amazing. The best games are the ones they make up themselves.
That's right.
It's outrageous.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you mention that because we had one parent, Jonathan Kinnersley, that worked particularly hard. He created these stencils himself for this. There's a long caterpillar, I'll bring pictures later, that goes from 1 to 100. All the numbers are painted on it. And right away, the kids were making up games and asked me, how does this work? I said, I don't know. He took some rules. And it was just field day for them. They were having a great time.
Since you're moving new playground equipment in and out, are you doing recess up at Crolot some too, just while that space is
We had some field day activities up there. we might have to then.
Yeah.
The way things stand right now, we don't need to yet. Now that this is delivered, we're in the process of scheduling old Edvin coming in to do some stone work, and Dave Manning will be doing some excavation, and that's just in the works now because the swing set was just delivered yesterday. So we may do that. A good chance we will. But hopefully we'll get most of that done on a weekend, as we did with these other work days. There's a very committed bunch of parent volunteers and staff volunteers. It's been a great community building.
Recess is always the highlight of school. So. Great.
So John, in August you said that the first grade was 20 and 23, and now you're down to 20 and 20 in the first
Yes,
grade?
we had, like Andy said, we've had about 4 students that never showed yet, so we'll have to wait and see if that pans out. We had one move, so yeah, it was at one point it was 2023, now it's 2020. We've all been kind of bouncing back and forth a lot.
At least it was moving in the right direction.
Yeah.
Well, more students is always good, too.
Yes, it's true.
Just quickly, is there anything the district is doing special for homeless families, transportation, or?
We have a homeless
Liaison.
Lucia Messina, and
She's district-wide.
She helps with whatever might be needed. So it would be either she talking with counselors or principals to find out who those students are and what they need.
Great, thanks.
So I had given out the SU action plan at the last meeting, and hopefully some of you have brought it, so I can distribute this to other people that may not have been. If you need one, just let me know. I'm going to try to take 5 minutes to do, just to highlight, and hopefully we can spend some more time at a future meeting. So we had talked about last time doing the work plan that we would spend a little time tonight on the action plan and then dedicate the next meeting as well. So it looks like it would fit into certainly the questions that have come up earlier by community members. So I'd just like to have you look at the mission statement: to provide a safe, inclusive, and supportive environment where all students grow academically, socially, and emotionally, and a challenge to reach their potential as local and global community members. We take that mission very seriously. What I feel that's very important about this SU action plan is it ties in with the school action plans. So this next paragraph: in order to fulfill our mission, the following district goals have been established to guide individual school-wide action plans: administrative goals, individual professional goals, and teacher professional development plans. So there's basically 3 main goals. Safe and healthy schools. All students have access to equal educational opportunities in safe, healthy, and respectful environments. I'll come back to some of those action steps in a moment. If you go on to page 3, student learning. All students will show annual progress in meeting Vermont standards. In our opening meeting in the district, where we have 700 employees, I purposely try not to do the No Child Left Behind grant, but I always get sucked into it in that AYP numbers come out, and the whole morale issue, and I purposely talk about the fact, don't worry about those numbers. We have activities here that are guided by staff members that, we're going to take care of those issues. We know we have the requirement for the Green Mountain Star indicators. We've already talked a little bit about that, how it ties into our action planning process anyway. Let's just take care of that. And the nice thing I feel about this district is we've always have had supportive school boards that don't get hung up on AYP numbers or No Child Left Behind. And I would hope that remains the case. And then the third goal, the leadership goal: members of the WSESU school community will work to develop school climates that promote positive and respectful behaviors and pride and ownership in our school. At the last meeting, I handed out the article that we had just completed, the middle school leadership retreat. We had about 80 students involved with that. And this is one of the areas where I feel very strongly about when we talk about board leadership, teacher leadership, administrative leadership, that section right in the middle, 1B, increase student opportunities to be involved in student leadership and school engagement. This article is a good example of the students that were really engaged in the social competency work that goes beyond just the academic pressures. And so we can talk about that as you wish at a future meeting. So if we go back to the first page, I'm just going to highlight a few sections because we're really running out of time. The action steps in the middle of the chart. 1A, coordinate work with the WSESU Diversity Equity Committee and our Wellness Committee and tie that to our action plans. And I think you'll notice that in all of the school action plans, there are academic goals that they certainly have to follow, but there are also the school climate goals that have been established. And these are some of the most important areas that we focus on. 1B, schools will create and implement programs to emphasize education about sex, sexual orientation, harassment, and supporting the social competencies. We've actually been focusing our professional development to include the social competencies in our staff professional development, and we can talk more about that as we have more time. 3A, if you look at that one, school leadership teams will facilitate a process of examination of school climate surveys by staff and students. This is a really important thing that we do climate surveys every year with grades 2nd through 8th graders. And one of the things that we're emphasizing is, I know schools review that data with their staffs, but what I'm trying to promote, and I know the schools are promoting, are getting more students involved in those discussions, much like we do with the middle school leadership retreat. And by the way, this plan is being updated. The last time the leadership team looked at this was during our summer retreat on August 14th. So some of the things that I'm highlighting will be emphasized and some other things will be changed. You'll see some dates that have already been past the deadlines, so it's all being revised. Just one other comment on this page. Under 4A, schools increase inclusion efforts through educator training, strengthening core programs, changing service delivery models, and ongoing state support. This is really talking about more kids being included in the mainstream classes. And I'm very proud of our school system that really is emphasizing more kids in mainstream classes as opposed to separating in separate programs. So things like multi-tier system of support that we'll talk more about and what that means. Response to intervention, the idea that when kids need remediation, we provide it, and when they need enrichment, we're able to do that as well. And so that's been a real focus over the last few years. Part of the reason for that is the data that we know. And if you skip on to, and I'm leaving a lot out because it's just the time element. But if you skip over to page 3, where we have the student learning goals, 2A, data teams, grade level cluster teams, and classroom teachers, special educators, academic support teachers, and administrators meet at least monthly to examine multiple sources of assessment data for students in their classrooms. So it feels like there's a lot of data, but I'll tell you this. It's more important to have multiple measures of data than to rely on state assessment standardized tests. And that's the rub. So we don't want to be guided by No Child Left Behind and just the state NECAP testing to judge our schools and our students. And that's why we do data collection on multiple measures for data collection. So although it may feel like there's a lot of that, it's really about interventions and trying to serve individual needs of students. If you skip down to 3C, use grade level and content level meetings, teachers to work together on curriculum and assessment, covering topics including math, literacy, writing, data collection, using data to inform instruction. One of the things that struck me a couple of years ago is at our grade level meetings that I try to attend in the spring and in the fall and in the spring, we had moved to an initiative to use Ames Web. It's a progress monitoring assessment device for literacy in the first year. That was about 2 years ago. And it was through those grade level meetings that the teachers said, we ought to be doing this in math. It wasn't Lyle, it wasn't Paul Smith, it wasn't me, it wasn't the principals, it was the teachers saying, you know, the literacy progress monitoring works really well. Why aren't we doing this in math? And Lyle and I looked at each other and said, okay, they think it's important. We were going to get to that point. Let's move to that point based on the teacher input. So I thought that was really important, that the notion that teachers were guiding this process. Probably not every teacher, but you know, the people that were you know, invested in looking at multiple measures certainly felt that way. So I'm going to stop there because there's a lot of material here, and I know we're really out of time. One thing I'd like to do after we have the hearing is just distribute some of the materials that Harry Frank had given us, and then an update on the work plan that we still need time to revise that.
So we don't really, we have to stick to that 6 o'clock?
Yeah, we should do that. And so what I would do is ask us to recess for a few minutes and then go into executive session, and then we will proceed with the hearing.
And we can finish the rest of the agenda at the end, because we want to stick to that time. So,
I move we go into executive session.
Could we recess for a few
let's
couple minutes?
recess for a few
Okay.
minutes, and then we'll come back.
Recess.
How about 6:05? Is that okay, Jack?
Yep.
And-
Sure.